And welcome to the Inside Britball podcast. My name's Andy Taylor and I'm joined by Stuart Andrew. Just Stuart this week because Isaac has been called up for work at last minute. So changed to the original plan. And we're really excited for this episode in particular because not only does it signify the end of the BUCS season, because we'll be looking back at the two fixtures that happened at the weekend, which is the Conference Cup finals in the North and the South. And then we'll look ahead towards week one, can you believe it, of the adult contact season. And I always know it's the adult contact season because it's always the weekend of the Grand National. So so there's horses everywhere. I work in a children's hospital in Liverpool, and there was ex-Grand National winners visiting our hospital over the last couple of days. And it's all a bit mental in Liverpool at the moment. But we're here to talk about the games that are happening this weekend. We've got a couple of bye weeks because I think it clashes with some GB, doesn't it, Stuart? But we've got some divisions still on the cards this week, haven't we? But no, interesting nonetheless, isn't it?
It's come around ridiculously quickly, hasn't it? But yeah, as you say, we believe that it's the unders, so under 19 and under 16s GB camps this weekend. So we saw a handful of teams posting out practice squads. So congratulations to the guys that are going down to those events. Have a great weekend. I'm sure you'll learn and compete and prosper, and then fingers crossed for selections for those guys that are going down to camps.
Yeah, 100%. It's always an exciting time for teams when they get to send their players down there, isn't it? You want the best for them, don't you? And certainly it was the case when I was around the club football, when you sent them down to go and give them hell, and come back with a selection. So, but at the same time, you're like, come back healthy. Yeah. So you don't want them to come back injured either, do you? So I'm sure there'll be some coaches holding their breath as well. But anyway, let's get into it then, Stuart, because we're going to briefly talk about these finals because there's only two fixtures to talk about in BUCS to round it off nicely. We ended up not having as close a game as we probably thought, and probably 35 points scored in the game is probably a reflection on maybe the Braves offense not coming to the game as much as they have done all season, rather than a reflection on the quality of the game. But have you heard much from this game, and did the results surprise you at all?
Let's go with the latter question first. Did the results surprise me? Yes, initially. So I was following both games last Sunday. I had the day off, so I was following them both on socials. And the margin of victory surprised me. And then sort of early doors during the week, Derby posted up a bit of a eulogy is the wrong word, a bit of like a synopsis of the entire season. And one of their comments was that they were going into this game very, very banged up with a handful of injuries. So I don't know whether that was to key players or whether that was just the number of injuries that they were carrying. So, they've had 6, 7, 8 regular season games plus 3 playoff games. I know it's the same for Sheffield. I don't know what squad sizes are like, but yeah, during BUCS football, it certainly takes its toll sort of this end of the season, and it looks like that Sheffield have come out on top of it. I also understand that it was a bit of a nasty injury during the game as well, sort of during the fourth quarter. So I hope that player and everybody that was involved is sort of okay and on the mend. We know that it held the game up for some time as well. So it's always difficult when you restart a game to sort of get sort of momentum. So if at that point Derby were like 2 scores behind, perhaps, it makes their job a little bit more difficult to put their foot on the gas again, so to speak. So yeah, a little bit disappointing from their point of view. But, let's flip the coin. Congratulations to Sheffield. They've gone through the season with their heads held high. They've competed. They've battered some teams, quite honestly. And it looks like they took care of business in the final and got that crown that's nicely placed on the graphic there.
Yeah, no, I totally agree from the graphics and from the result point of view. But yeah, no, I think we're all surprised by the gap in the result. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see it, but certainly I didn't anyway. But I think we all agreed that both these teams did not belong in Tier 2 this year at all, did they? That they were a Tier 1 outfit that very much deserve their promotions into next season, and they'll. I'm sure. I think I asked you a similar question for the Tier 1. It feels like these teams are going to do all right up in Tier 1 as well, right? I don't expect that they will go up there and be a struggling side. It feels like that they're going to carry that momentum, and presuming that there isn't too much turnover, then they would belong in Tier 1 next year. Do you agree?
Yeah, certainly. Again, it comes back to that turnover thing. So it depends on how many of their guys are graduating. Obviously, coaching staff turnover potentially. Coaches like to go out on a high. We've already seen a couple of coaches' announcements following awards evenings for BUCS teams saying, this coaching staff is changing slightly. So yeah, this sort of off season, if we can ever call anything an off season in contact football, it's important for teams now to already be on the recruitment path for next year. So I think both teams will have no problems in Tier 1 next season. Obviously, any sort of reshuffle in mind, but no, I think both of these guys will go up and compete. Same with Edge Hill. I can see them going up and being a strong contender in Tier 1. And I don't see them sort of becoming that yo-yo team up and down.
Yeah, that's a good thought as well. Good point. And we kind of got that insight for the preview as well, didn't we, from Sabres, where they almost got a wake up call in their varsity game, and they were disappointed with that. And it's almost like that they got re-energized, and maybe that's what Derby came up against was a peed off Sheffield Sabres team. And any insight you can give us, drop us a line, and that would be very helpful from the community. But let's have a little skip and a hop over to Oxford, where we saw. I think that from what I gather, the score's a little bit misleading, but I'll let you give your thoughts into this one, because Oxford BUCS came away champions against Plymouth Blitz 2014 in the end. But did you get much sight on this game as well?
Yeah, from what I've heard, it was kind of tail of the turnovers. Okay. Plymouth were, they were doing all right until they got inside the red zones. And I've seen that one guy, I think it was number 28 for Oxford, got 3 or 4 interceptions, 2 of which were from inside an end zone. And it's just like, okay, if you've really got to punch your ticket down in the red zone to win games, not just to compete, but to win games, you need to make sure you're putting points on the board. And if at least one of those extra interceptions that have gone in for a score, then that puts them on 21 points, assuming they make the point after, of course, and they win the game. So yeah, Oxford, they've been strong all season, and to only put up 20 points, I think they'll be disappointed with that. But again, we don't know what sort of strength squad they went into the game with. We don't know what they did. Obviously, it's still a final, and you always want to win, but there's nothing really on the line at this point. So are they starting to rotate players in that perhaps haven't played much throughout the season as a nod to say, look, we've made the final, let's get everybody some game time. So, unfortunately, without having reporters roaming the country attending games, that's probably about the most balanced review I think we can give. Yeah, you mentioned the score was a bit misleading. I think it is. I think obviously Plymouth played up to the event and put those 2 scores on the board. But yeah, they kind of shot themselves in the heel with these turnovers that they created.
Yeah, so it sounds like it could potentially have been even closer had those turnovers not happened, which is really interesting, isn't it? And we ended up getting a very scrappy affair, in the end, which Plymouth have played all year, haven't they? So we said that Plymouth needed to make it their game. They needed to take possessions away from Oxford, and in the end, we got the tight scoreline that we got. So congratulations to Oxford BUCS for taking the silverware home, as well as a promotion into in Tier 2 and Tier 1. Sorry, and again, I assume you would agree that both these teams will fit right in Tier 1 next year.
Yeah, OBU definitely. I don't see them having any problems whatsoever if they can keep the momentum that they've built into this season going into next. Obviously, we know Calvin's coach Stuart is in charge down there. We hope he continues, because what he's seemingly brought to that program is a winning mentality. He's obviously brought that from a winning program over at Rushmore. So yeah, that's looking promising for them. And then Plymouth, again, they're kind of a team that do tend to bounce between tier 1 and tier 2 every now and again. So I just hope that they can put a bit of momentum in compete in tier 1 and stay up there. But that sort of southwest is always a really tight and cagey area, whatever tier you're in. So yeah, let's just hope that they can recruit and strengthen and bolster what they've built on this season.
Yeah, no, it'll be great to see how they do. And obviously Kingston, I think, are the other team who are gaining promotion, aren't they? As coming top in the Eastern Division, I think it was. So yeah, no, it'll be good to see how they get on next season for sure. But anyway, that's BUCS. We're done with it, which is amazing to think. It seems to have just shot past us in a blink of an eye, hasn't it, this BUCS season? And now we're on to the summer, which and the first week of April is weird to say, but it starts this weekend, whether we like it or not. And we have the first weeks of adult contact football coming up this weekend, and I can't wait to see it. It's always my favourite time of the year, and although I am slowly picking up BUCS and picking up women's flag football, love it still. This is when the chaos comes, isn't it, for us, because we've got 6 formats to cover across a 6-month stretch. So it's a lot of fun for us, culminating in what's usually the last week of August or first week of September, isn't it? So looking forward to it. So we are going to look at the fixtures that are going to happen this week. We do have a preview article dropping for Adult Contact, which myself, Isaac and Joel have contributed towards, so look out for that probably tomorrow night after the podcast drops in the morning, and we will give you a bit of a breakdown of all the divisions basically. But what we'll do is we'll kind of give you these nuggets now that we can give you, but whilst previewing the fixtures that are happening. So no Prem action this week. We start off with Division 1. And half of the divisions are in action, but there's not many fixtures, but there's some nonetheless. So that's Scotland division, the poor Scotland division. I know there's a wider conversation here, and I've said this in the preview that, you know, let's not get into that. We'll get into that another time around the issues that are going on in Scotland. But what we do know now, which was clarified last week, I think, Stuart, I think you sorted that out for us. We have in competition Clyde Valley Blackhawks, Glasgow Tigers, Inverclyde Goliaths. They are in competition. They are the only 3 that are able to qualify for playoffs or promotion. Then they will be joined in division by the Aberdeen Roughnecks. Hello, Aberdeen Roughnecks. Welcome back. And the Rossendale BUCS, a wholly new team. But they will be associates. So they will be that will be part of their associate status. So it's a bit of a fudge, isn't it, from BAFA really? But it's obviously 2 birds, 1 stone. They don't have to worry about the number of fixtures that each Scottish team that deserves to take place get their allotted 8, and they also get two potential associate teams on the back of it as well, one of which they're obviously desperate for in the Aberdeen Roughnecks as well. So unfortunately the Highland Stags didn't meet the health check, I think is the terminology we're being told, isn't it? So an interesting start. The top 2 in the division last year. No, that's not true, is it? We had the top in Glasgow, and then obviously Clyde Valley. I think they were 3rd actually. So I'm completely lying to you. But we have seen a number of announcements from Clyde Valley around obtaining some players, either from Edinburgh or from local rivals such as Inverclyde and Glasgow. So I suppose we might be expecting a Glasgow Tigers sort of continuation this year, but it's going to be a weird one to kind of assess this as the year goes by, isn't it? NFC1 Scotland.
Yeah, I think Scotland as a whole is going to be a tough one. Obviously, we've seen Edinburgh and Highland go by the wayside, so there's probably 60, 70 odd players there that are just floating around in a wilderness thinking, how am I going to get my football fix this summer? Highland might be a little bit different because that's kind of somewhere up here off the top of my screen and keep going. So those players might not come down to the likes of Edinburgh and Glasgow to play football. Because none of us English teams like the trip up to Scotland. I'm sure none of the Scotland players enjoy the long trips that they have to endure to the very north coast up to Highland. So it's a shame to see these teams slip by the health check or just not re-enter the league in Edinburgh's case, but it does bolster and it does help out the other teams because they can hopefully recruit from the talent pool. And in the case of Clyde Valley, can they push from that third position to the second position, or even challenge Glasgow for the title in the NFC1 Scottish division?
Yeah, totally. And just as a note, we actually had a relatively tight affair this time last year in this fixture where Tigers came out 23-12 victors. So who knows, a little bit of improvement there, and we might see a turnaround of fortune for Clyde Valley, but we'll wait and see. I know there was a lot of questions being asked around the number of plays that they had, because there was obviously an overlap with some of the flag teams there as well. So hopefully they're able to make that step, which would be great. Then we move on to the NFC1 North, and this is one that I'm glad I'm not previewing it, because I don't know where I would start with this division, because it's a challenging division to look at, isn't it? In more ways than one. A division that 4 of the 5 are playing this week. The only one who's not playing is the Scunthorpe Alphas, who will be chomping at the bit to, I'm sure, challenge for a promotional push this year. But nonetheless, we have a redo of a fixture last year, I believe, which was the Chester Romans and the Yorkshire Rams. And then we have the Sheffield Giants versus the Merseyside Nighthawks, who, whether you call it finally or deservedly, have been find themselves in Division 1 this year. And who knows what they're going to feel, but we've got some very interesting games, haven't we, in this slate in the NFC1 North this weekend.
I think this is going to be the division where it's battle of old foes, isn't it? They'll have all seen each other several times over the last few seasons, and most of them will potentially have seen Merseyside, because we share game film a lot up in the north or northwest. We've got a good connection base of coaches up here and players. Everybody seems to know each other, and players tend to bounce from team to team. So it'll be good to see Merseyside sort of competing at a level, sort of in division. I nearly called it tier 1 then, in Division 1, and not being looked upon as, oh, we're playing Merseyside Nighthawks this weekend. What players can we play? They might have to sort of look over their shoulder and go, okay, what are Merseyside going to be this season? Funnily enough, I've always avoided the Merseyside Nighthawks. I've never actually played, coached, or been involved in a game against them. So I actually have no idea what they are. So I'll certainly be trying to watch them from afar this season as well. So everybody else I've had some dealings with, watching, coaching, refereeing, whatever. But yeah, they'll be certainly the ones that have my eye on them in the first couple of weekends.
Yeah, if Yorkshire Rams can continue their form from last year, I think Yorkshire Rams, if they've been able to go out and acquire a bit more talent, bolster what they had last year, use that as a platform to improve on, then they're going to be the the force to be reckoned with in this division. I know Scunthorpe Alphas will have something to say about that, but I do think that there would have to be some marked improvements from the other three. My expectations is that the Nighthawks won't come in and dominate. I don't think they'll come in and be the ex-Prem team, the relegated Prem team, and they bounce back. I know for a fact that they've lost some very key players on both sides of the line, GB players as well, and that's not just to different teams, that's to retirement. So they're going to have to develop. This might be a reset year for them to kind of sort of gather and move up, but I'll still be watching. I'm still a fan of the team, being around it for nearly a decade. And so it'd be interesting to see. But the one thing I can tell you, Stuart, is that a Sheffield Giants Merseyside Nighthawks game is never boring. It is never boring. That over the last 5-6 years, there's been ties, there's been last-minute field goals, there has been 33-35 last-minute touchdowns against these two teams, and it's always fun. It was always fun for us to travel to Sheffield because we knew it was always going to be a fun and tough game to go to. So I fully suspect normal service to resume there, and I suppose the question with a number of these teams is what talent have they been able to acquire on offense, because they have 3 of the 4 teams have not been smooth on offense because they've been in transition, haven't they? So be interesting to see how they do. Chester Romans and the Yorkshire Rams we saw last year didn't end well for Chester Romans. 44-0 win by the Yorkshire Rams, but Yorkshire Rams were really on a roll at that point. They were on the playoff and promotion run. So be interesting to see how that goes. What side are Chester going to be fielding this year with the turnover of coaches that they've had? So yeah, very interested to see those games, but yeah, definitely looking forward to seeing what comes out of Sheffield this weekend. Let's have a look further south then. We've got the London Blitz B, who are facing the Berkshire Renegades. Berkshire Renegades somehow found themselves in Division 1. And again, it's one of those with alignments. Some people get lucky, some people don't. And Berkshire will probably will see themselves a little bit lucky to find themselves in Division 1. They, if memory serves, they finished second in their division last year, if I remember correctly. In Division 2, they then lost their first game in the playoff, but still find themselves with all the shuffling around in the league. So they find themselves in Division 1. So I think it'd be probably fair to say that this is expected to be a difficult game for them, travelling to London Blitz B. But do you have any thoughts on that? Is that controversial to say?
I don't think so. And I hope everybody down at the Renegades will agree with us. It's kind of baptism of fire, but if you want to sort of be around and compete in, you kind of want to play better standard of football. Berkshire have been a well-established club. They're sort of competing. They've always been around the league. It's a name that's familiar with a lot. They've got a good setup. They've got U19 football, I'm pretty sure. They potentially have U16 as well, thinking back through the graphics that I'm designing. Mm-hmm. So, they've got a good club. They've got a good process. So they're doing something right. So I think with the realignments, and certainly, look, a 4-4 record last season, it's not like they got stomped on every single game, or they, they got lucky to be promoted. That it was just that the other Southern Division in Tier 2 was considerably stronger, and both of those teams did really, really well. So I think it's the same with Sussex. They finished 4-4 at the top of the division as well. So yeah, lucky to be promoted potentially. They obviously probably got the option, so they probably either accepted or could have declined. So they probably accepted and took that and want to compete at this level. So good luck to you. Go ahead, crack on, and go and surprise us against it's never a sluggish and slow London Blitz team. It's at Finsbury Park, so have fun with the facilities. It's always notoriously interesting, shall we say. I know they have worked on the field a lot, but maybe not so much the off-field bits. So that's probably one of the southern fixtures that will catch my eye this weekend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think thinking back to last year, obviously London Blitz were going through a tumultuous off-season this time last year, weren't they? Who knows what was going on in that program? So at the same time, even though we saw the A teams, the London Blitz up in the Prem, have a difficult year, who knows what knock-on effect that had for the B team. But certainly during my time in BAFA for that 1 year, they were really keen to see Blitz B up there. Now, Blitz B only finished with a 250 record last year, so they didn't do well themselves. But that is in the context of the program going through a tough year. So who knows what we'll see this year. So potentially this might be one of the better starts for Berkshire to get. You could argue that Sussex is the other with the other promoted side there, but we had London Blitz B last year. I was having a little look there at the stats that they had scored 106, conceded 163. If you compare that to Berkshire, who scored 89 and conceded 108. So the differentials are very similar. The MPPG is not too far, so the net points per game is not too far different either. So this might be an interesting one, and it's probably one that Berkshire are quite happy to start Division 1, at least a Tier 1, Division 1 life with. So we'll see. Not an easy trip for them either. I know Berkshire's not too far away, but it's awkward for them, isn't it? So let's see how that goes. But let's have a little look further west, where we've got the Bournemouth Bobcats against the Somerset Wyverns this year. There will be similar foes. They faced them last year, if memory serves. I'm sure that this is a remake of last year. Because it's always difficult to keep on top of these things because there was a lot of change, wasn't there? But the Bournemouth Bobcats started off slowly last year, but finished really, really strongly. And I know that it sounded like they were very confident that they could take that momentum in. Somerset, they were kind of the opposite. I think they had a couple of good results early on and then faded away. Having a little look at what this fixture finished last year, we had a 35-8 victory for Bournemouth over Somerset. So this is still, again, going to be a very, very interesting division with the likes of the Apache, Solent, Somerset, and South Wales Warriors in there. What's your thoughts on this division? And then obviously this fixture.
I think similar to the NFC 1 North, this is kind of the tasty division in the South. So I think this could be potentially a tale of like top and bottom, similar to a couple of things that we've seen in BUCS. Teams will tend to beat the bottom two clubs, and sort of you will see maybe like a 1-4-4 team. We haven't seen a lot of teams in this country don't do a lot of sort of signing days or advertisements. We see a lot from the Aztecs picking up a lot of the UWE talent, which is fair. But yeah, it's not something that we see. So we don't know what these guys have done in terms of recruitment. But what we have seen coming out of the Bournemouth Bobcats is their link towards the Bobcats university team. So we don't
did really well.
Who competed and really, really stuck out like I saw some down in the southwest. So, that sort of relationship with the university team is only going to bode well. I have a feeling that they are moving fields, so I have a feeling that they're going to play at Bournemouth University as well. So the facilities are already coming on board. I don't know how much they're tapping into the coaching staff. I know that Steve Rains is a big name sort of down there. A lot of people around the country know of him. I don't know how involved he's getting with summer football. I know he sort of took a couple of summers out, didn't he? But he was back coaching university football, I believe, with the Uni Bobcats. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what knock-on effects that has had. Easy for me to say after a long week at work already. But yeah, I see this kind of going the same way that last season did. I think the Bournemouth Bobcats will take this game. Will it be as far-fetched as the result was last year? I don't think so. First game's always difficult. in a season. It's really easy to pick up and play defense. It's not so easy to pick up and play offense. So I don't think we'll see the same sort of offensive production that we saw in the game last year between these two. But who knows? It's kind of pick and mix at this early stage of the season without us getting out and looking at all of the teams during pre-season.
Yeah, totally. And I think I remember when Mike did a couple of match reports for us last year, that a lot of the comments that he was making was about how the offense took a few games to get going, and they were on fire towards the end of it and quite dominant. So hopefully that was something that they were able to keep together and keep going with for this year. So that'll be interesting to see, because that division actually hasn't had much change. I had to double check, has it changed at all? And actually Hereford have not been replaced by a promoted side. They've been replaced by a demoted side in the Solent Thrashers from the Prem, who we know has gone through a lot of turnover, including some very good hires, certainly as when it comes to head coach hires as well. So there'll be a very interesting side to see how they slot in here, but we'll get time to talk about Solent when they take to the field. I don't know when that is. I'm not even going to bother looking, but certainly shortly they'll be on the field for sure. Let's move on then, and let's take a look at Division 2. Every single division is in play this week. Not every single team though. Let's have a look at the North, work our way down. I'm sure I've seen these fixtures before.
Yeah, it's a division that doesn't change a great deal, isn't it? The sort of the NFC2 North. They'll know each other inside out. They'll know coaching staffs, they'll know playbooks. The players tend to bounce around a few of these teams. I know Isaac's mentioned it in the past when he's played up in that area. So yeah, very familiar foes. I'm sure you're going to spout out lots of stats about how these guys competed last year. But again, we sort of don't know who's bounced where. So looking forward to it. I'm sure these guys have a really healthy rivalry up there. And we'll watch this one. It's a little bit far to travel up there to watch these games, but hopefully we see a stream or two from a few of these guys. I know that Wakefield are particularly active on social media, so looking forward to hearing what they have to say about their games. And then seeing that Gateshead kit in all sorts of photographs is always fun for the eyes. So let's see what they can push out as well. Everybody loves a good burnt orange, right?
Totally. Yeah, no, totally. And I think what'll be interesting to hear is what they've been able to retain. Obviously with the Newcastle Vikings being successful, shall we say, in that region, what sort of leak of talent has gone that way in the Premiership from a couple of these sides, which is obviously difficult. And then obviously Wakefield and Humber will be under the threat of the success that Yorkshire Rams are having. So, as with everything in Division 2, what talent has gone upwards, which is a concern. I'm sure the likes of Darlington and Gateshead will have been disappointed with their post-season run and how they ended that season, because both sides ended up losing to the other NFC. I think it was the West last year it was called, wasn't it? In a team that you know well, Sandwell and Staffordshire.
Staffordshire,
Yeah. But the unknown on how they'll fit in is the Hull Cogans, which I thoroughly enjoyed on April Fool's. Well done to you guys. I love that. But no, I'm talking about the Humber Warhawks, of course. They've come down, obviously, a division to Division 2. What sort of noise can they make? But early eyes will be on this Darlington Steam Gateshead Senators games, which were very entertaining games last year. So we had a 46-20 in this game last year, in this home game for Darlington. And then what did the other game finish? 26-16. So potentially what's guaranteed in this game is points. It'll be a case of which way it finishes. Are they going to share the spoils this year, or is someone going to run away with it to try and get that promotional opportunity, which is obviously happening this year, to the dismay of many, I'm sure. We did hear from Isaac. We have heard about Wakefield, concerns there about the talent that they'll have there right now. So we will be looking, and I'm sure we've got some invested interest from Isaac, who played for them last year, as to how they'll do. So good luck to them, and see how they do against Humber. Lee is in the Midlands, apparently. Stuart, I didn't know that.
I don't do geography, mate. I'm a sports student, but yeah, it's also a mining town, I believe. I know Lee for rugby league. I don't know Lee for American football.
Exactly. Same place.
It's to be fair, it's another team with a lovely kit. They play in that sort of
the gold kit,
pale gold kit, isn't it? I much prefer their purple. Much prefer their purple. But two really good contrasting colours from a graphic design point of view. I like it. Coming up against a Leicester Panthers team that have had a little bit of a fall from grace. Hopefully they're sort of stabilising a little bit this season. And they can sort of draw back on player experience there. They've certainly got a lot of, again, they're a team that are good on social media. They're getting a lot of good photographs from a photographer. A lot of teams you see having media days nowadays, which is good to see. It's good to sort of boost the image, certainly at club level. In terms of on the pitch, what do I see in this game? I think I mentioned, and I said last season, that Lee are kind of that team that just want to come and have a bit of fun on the field. It'd be interesting to see whether that's translated, or whether this is the year that they think, okay, let's solidify, let's come and compete, let's come and really look to push on. But in a league full of teams that begin with L, you don't really want to be taking the L on the opening weekend of the season. So let's see what happens. But I'm not sure I can look past the Leicester Panthers and their organisation in this one.
Yeah, and I mean, at the moment, all we've got to go by is social media, right? And that's the difficulty with all this. BAFA don't publish player transfers. There's no sort of like open access to what's happening on rosters and so on. So there is limited information. What we have seen quite obviously is that there's been a lot of transition of players or transferring from Lee to Lancashire. We know Lancashire have had a number of players. I know they've got a very good roster. Well, not a good, I don't know if it's a good roster, but a big roster compared to other years. So who knows whether it's talented? We'll find that out in due course. Obviously, it's the times now. But I'll be interested to know how Lee do. They will be coming up against Leicester, who, when Nighthawks faced them a few years ago, oh God, how long ago would that be now? 4 years? Yeah, about that.
Jeez.
About 4 years. They would be. They were a very tough team. They were very good along the lines of scrimmage. It'll just be interesting to see what sort of, the drop from Division 1, Division 2 has done to their player recruitment, and that'll be the question here, won't it? What have Lee been able to keep hold of? What have Leicester been able to keep hold of? And is this the reset that Leicester are going to hope for? That and follow the Sandwell and the Colchester sort of model that we documented so clearly last year with those two programs. So it'd be very interesting. But yeah, the team of the division of L's we're not going to stick with. We'll stick with the NFC 2 Midlands, shall we? And obviously we've got Lancashire Buccaneers now, and the Lincolnshire Bombers in this division as well. So be intriguing. Then we've got the Battle of East Anglia in South East 2. We've got Norwich Devils versus Ipswich Cardinals, which we haven't seen for a number of years, but I'm looking forward to this one in particular.
Yeah, we could also harp on about the religious implications of Cardinals facing Devils, if we really wanted to, and play on that. East Anglia derby. There's lots of different angles we could take on this game.
Good versus bad, light versus dark. Yeah, brilliant.
Why not? Let's talk about that rather than the football, shall we? But no, let's not, because there'll be somebody that says, "Oh, you're not talking about the football." What do we see in this one? Two teams that have kind of played at this level for a little while, and I think it could be fairly evenly matched. Again, it depends. We've mentioned it across the board. We don't know who's got what, and we've only really got historical data to go on. So it'll be good for both of these teams to come out and sort of set their stall out and say, okay, we're going to look to really kick on this season. We want to push for that chance for promotion, as we'll call it, not playoff and finals. We'll we want to be involved and have our name in that bracket, and we want you to be talking about us all season, which we'll give you a good shot if you put a good product out on the field.
Yeah, it's interesting because Ipswich won 3 games last year, and 2 of them were against Berkshire, who now find themselves in Division 1. So what does that say, right? So what does that say about this outfit? What were they developing last year? Now, those victories happened later on in the season, so were they able to build up from that, and take that on? Norwich had a terrible year last year. I'm sure it was very difficult for them. I don't think they played all the games, did they? If memory serves me correct, I think they missed a couple of games in the end. I don't want to leave that hanging and be completely wrong, so I'm just going to double check before I completely offend someone.
I have a feeling they missed one. I seem to remember that.
Yes, you're dead right. They missed the East Kent Mavericks.
Yeah.
Away game for them, so at East Kent. So they did miss one, but they conceded 289 in those 7 games they did play. They only conceded 32 in those games that they did play. Did I say that scored 32, conceded 289? So they averaged a 5 touchdown loss last year. That's tough. So again, that are they going to use this as a reset? They're going to bounce back, and they get to play their rivals in the first season. And it's all I always think that it's easier to be the established Division 2 team than it is to come in as the demoted team and start off well, unless you've got obviously a complete talent surplus compared to the other team. So be interesting again. I'm very excited for this one to see what sort of litmus test it provides us with, because if Ipswich come away with this victory, that might really spring them this year into that division against foes that they'll know well. And then obviously we'll talk about Oxford, who are the other team to come down from Division 1 in this division as well. So it could be quite a tough one. And then I'm intrigued to know what the Plymouth Vanguard are in SFC2 West. We've heard a lot about them. We've read a lot about them. We've spoken to them at length in our own messaging boards, haven't we? They're very open to talk to us. We're hoping to get them on the show sometime soon as well. Be really good to chat to them and see what their experiences have been like. But they seem to be doing it very well. So the way I'm seeing them is that they're kind of fitting into where do you remember the Torbay Trojans? Were they pre-COVID team? I think they were, weren't they? I'm pretty sure that was 18-19, wasn't it? They're in that area, so it's almost like they've kind of regained that area, and so I'm kind of suspecting that they're going to come in and really take this division by storm. They're going to come up against a game wrecker in Hereford Stampede in a couple of weeks, I'm sure, but it'd be interesting to see how they get on against Cornwall Monarchs, who didn't have a great season last year. Let me remind myself with how they got on last year. They finished 3rd, 2-6, scored quite a bit, but conceded quite a bit. And against Swindon Storm, who couldn't really score much at all. So, I think we've done a bit of a preview, and we've kind of polled, haven't we, within our team, who we think might come out of this. And Hereford are the ones that I'm looking at. I'm worried that they're going to scupper my prediction, but I'm predicting a good year for Plymouth this year. What do you think?
I think they're going to be a real dark horse. I think they're kind of going to be the next sort of Scunthorpe Alphas, Nottingham Caesars, Sandwell Steelers, who, either built a team or dropped down and re-established a team. And everything that I have heard has been positive about how the Vanguards have handled themselves, how they've set themselves up, what they're doing within the organisation. So, similar to other teams, they're going to have sort of my eye on them this season. It's also not a million miles away from home for a couple of those other teams. So I might be lucky enough to be appointed to cover one of their games. And I really hope that they wear their green kit and not their bright yellow kit, because something about me and kits this season, I don't know what it's going to be. Don't get me wrong, it's a nice kit. It's good to see it in photographs, but I'm not sure I could officiate an entire game with a team wearing a yellow kit. It's like the Lancashire, what they were, Wolverines a few years ago. When they had
like the neon,
that neon
right.
yellow.
Right.
I think the Ouse Valley Eagles also had a bright yellow kit as well. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know what it is. But yeah, it's playing your green kit, please, guys. Back to the football again. I think they will really compete for the top of this table. You mentioned Hereford a couple of times. I know that they've recruited particularly well in terms of getting numbers on board. Talent with those numbers remains to be seen. I know they've sort of dipped into the Worcestershire area again, really close to home this one. So they've picked up a few players that used to play for the Worcestershire Black Knights, who are now defunct, and I don't think will particularly come back. But yeah, they've really dipped into that talent pool. They've had a couple of recruitment days in the sort of the Worcestershire direction, so they're building back up. Will they compete? Remains to be seen. Cornwall are always a thorn in people's sides. It's never an easy journey to go all the way down to play down there. It's a little bit closer for Plymouth, as you mentioned, but for the likes of Swindon and Hereford, it's a bit of a bus journey. So yeah, take your Kindles and your iPads and enjoy that journey down there. And then if you win, enjoy the bus journey back, because it's always fun after a couple of tins on a journey back after a win, isn't
it? Yeah. No. It's always difficult to know how well a Division 1 team going down as Division 2 will do. I know obviously Hereford aren't, if memory serves, Hereford aren't surrounded by too many teams in close proximity. You'll be able to correct me. You'll know that geography better than me. So that's less of an issue for them. But nonetheless, they really did struggle last year. You know, they went 0-8. They had a very similar, story of the Norwich Devils and alike that have come down. So they certainly have shown that they don't belong in Division 1. But are they going to come down and be a good Division 2 team and take that bounce back almost immediately? And I don't know the rest. I haven't heard much about Cornwall and Swindon. They've not done a lot of shouting about their recruitment, so that's all we can go by. But yeah, my immediate gut feeling is that it's between Plymouth and Hereford. But on these games in particular, this is going to be a big one for Plymouth, isn't it? You know, that they're going to know quite quickly where they fit if they come up against this Cornwall side, who, if memory serves me correctly, they had a good defense last year. Less than 20 points a game. When you've got cross competition against Colchester and Essex of last year as well, that's not too bad. And they're always a pain, aren't they? And Swindon Storm, Swindon Storm, how many 3-0, 6-0, 2-0 games did they have last year? They need an offense. It's very clear what they need. They need an offense. They scored 64 points last year across 8 games. If they can find anything of a competent offense, then again they could surprise some people. Nonetheless, we've gone on there about Division 2. Obviously, what they're competing for is eligibility to be able to play a playoff game for promotion. There's obviously no bowls this year, so it's all clumped together within the South, isn't it? So South will go South, and there's no talk of South versus North now in these 2 divisions. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. And obviously we don't have cross conference this year in Division 2 like we did last year. So interesting. I can't wait. I'm really excited for it. I can't wait to see where we go. There's loads of questions there. We couldn't answer them because we're waiting to see what happens this weekend, isn't it? And we'll see. You're not reffing this weekend? No.
No, I'm working all week, and then there wasn't really a game close to home. So I thought, let's spend 1 week with family this weekend, and then look to officiate later on in the season when I've got at least 2 or 3 free weekends. But yeah, I've got lots of friends in lots of different places that I'm sure will give me decent match reports. And if you guys have any match reports that you want to send us, any film, any reviews, any stats, anything like that, get them across to us and we'll just keep building the content that we're pushing out. Obviously, you'll notice that the graphics have tweaked slightly. We think they look really, really pretty. But yeah, if we can create more graphics and keep me busy, send whatever you've got over to us and we'll push out whatever content we can.
Yeah, that video content, we're more than happy to promote you. We're hoping to put much more video content out for you guys. If you've got any favorite plays that you want to send them in. We'll share them. We'll put them on our YouTube channel. We'll put them up on as highlights for the podcast if you like. We love it, so send it through and we'll use it. It won't be wasted time for you, and we'll share them across our platforms. But no, thank you, Stuart, for jumping on. Even though we're a man down, and I know you're travelling at the moment with work, so appreciate your time. Looking forward to this weekend. We'll catch up next week. Might be me. I'm travelling to Ireland for 2 weeks to spend 2 weeks with the in-laws. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, it remains to be seen. So it may or may not be with me next week, but nonetheless, I'm sure you'll be back to talk about adult contact again and look ahead to the next week as well, which I believe includes some Premiership sides as well. So really excited for that. Reminder, have a look on our website, please. With a big article going out for the next 24 hours. We appreciate you having a little look at that and give us your feedback on what you think of our thoughts heading into the adult contact season. And then we're talking about NWFL. Then we'll be talking about others, and it'll all go. Let alone the National Flag Football League, which has already started as well. So looking forward to that. So Stuart, thank you very much. Thank you for those that are listening and watching as well. And we'll catch you again very, very soon, sometime next week, I'm sure. Thank you again.